Let's talk about questions involving summation of series and Maclaurin expansion. Okay, so the key phrase is summation of series and Maclaurin expansion. So you can see that there is two different topics coming together. Okay, summation and Maclaurin expansion. Right now. This kind of question is actually quite simple. Usually it's about 1 mark, okay, in your question. I have actually presented two examples over here. They are quite typical, okay. So for example, you will see somewhere in your question, usually towards the end of the question, they might ask you to find the sum to infinity for a particular series, and in our example 1 it looks like this, okay. So if you didn't know what to do, okay, most of the students would have expanded this and try to figure out what it is, okay? So if you were to expand this, right? Suppose we write this down, r equals to 0, and then after that, x to the power of r factorial. If you were to expand this one by one, we have x to the power of 0 over 0 factorial, okay? If you press this into your calculator, 0 factorial, you realize it's 1, and x to the power of 0 is 1. So I'm just going to simply write it as 1, okay? And then after that, r is equals to 1, we have x over 1 factorial, which could be simplified to simply just x, okay? And next up, it is x squared over 2 factorial plus x cubed over 3 factorial, so on and so forth. So if you're just looking at this, and if this happens to be paired with, other questions in the topic of summation and series, you may be wondering, how do I actually figure out the sum to infinity for this? Because it is actually you don't have any formulas for that, okay? But what you need to realize is that this is none other than the series that we have over here, okay? So that is the Maclaurin expansion. So therefore, this lesson, which tells you that such questions exist, okay? So what you need to do simply is to remember that you have watched it. After you have watched this video, simply remember that such questions exist, and when you come across a question like that, remember to refer to your formula sheet, okay, which is the MF26, right? And just double check which standard series corresponds to the expansion over here. And in this case, it is simply just EX. All right, there you go. Okay, now let's take a look at example 2. State the sum to infinity of the series for the expansion. Okay, I just realized that I need to change this, okay, to infinity. All right, there you go. So again, we can write this expansion out, or we could just simply go ahead and compare the general term, okay? So let's just go back to example 1 over here. We see that this is the general term, x to the power r over r factorial, and then you see that it corresponds to the general term in the e to the power x, all right? Likewise, for this guy, sum to infinity of a series, okay, on example 2, we realize that it corresponds to this one, okay? Minus 1 to the power r e to r, 2r factorial, okay? The only difference in this case is that instead of x, we have e, okay? So that means if we were to expand this, all right, it will look something like that. It will look something like 1 minus e squared over 2 factorial, okay, plus e to the power of 4 over 4 factorial, okay, so on and so forth. So this one is just none other than cosine x. But as I've mentioned, we have replaced the x with e. So all you need to do is to write this down as cosine e, okay? And then you can key this into your calculator and figure out what this value is, all right? So this will be in radian, so cosine e, okay? And we have minus 0.911 or rather 912, okay, to 3SF. All right, so remember this, okay? It could come out most likely in the topic of summation of series, but it could also appear in Maclaurin expansion topic.